Boy, some LSD. Whew, that's tough. Some LSD or some really strong psychedelic, and they warped his mind. Usually that's what they do when they MK Ultra you.
Destroyed by the CIA. What was actually left over is so shocking to understand that they were using hypnosis. And what they were trying to do was to see if they could create a truth serum. They were trying to see if they could implant ideas into people's minds as another component of it. And they were also trying to see if they could give people a cocktail of drugs that would just make them go crazy. So they wouldn't even know what they did. So if you were Jacob Rubenstein and you were a part of this assassination squad or a part of the day they're planning to kill him, and you think that you're in the in crowd and then they want to turn on you, they can give you a concoction of drugs and they can make you crazy. You won't remember anything. And a person who was leading those experiments.
And wild part is, man, think about it, if we could do it off alcohol, shoot, imagine they can make you do off acid, LSD, I mean, ketamine, whatever psychedelic they need to get you about your body.
Was a psychiatrist named Dr. Jolly West. He was a part of this obsession with trying to see whether or not they could give people mental conditions. And so what he discovers is that Dr. Jolly West paid Jacob Rubenstein a visit in prison before he was due to see the judge. I'm just going to read directly from his book. This is page 343, just this one little paragraph. After John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963, West psychiatrically examined Jack Ruby, who had murdered Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, not long before Ruby was due to testify for the Warren Commission. West examined him alone in his jail cell. He emerged to report that Ruby had suffered an acute psychotic break. Sure enough, Ruby's testimony before the commission succeeded only in making him sound unhinged. He could never fully explain why he'd decided to kill Oswald. Fascinating. A cocktail of drugs that can make people crazy. This kind of makes you think about Britney Spears, makes you think about what Kanye was trying to say they tried to do to him when he was put on a Psych 5150 hold. It opens a lot. Let's stay focused on the Kennedys because that's what we're here to talk about. RFK, JFK's brother, certainly had an idea of who may have killed his brother. And I would say he was not accepting the official storyline that it was just Lee Harvey Oswald. He was also at this time amassing a ton of political power. Of course, they were a tremendously powerful political family in politics. He was a senator and he was gaining a lot of steam throughout the Democratic presidential primaries in the summer of 1968. Now, you got to think, if you're the deep state and you have just gone through such great lengths to kill the guy who you didn't want to have in office, the guy who didn't want to have didn't want to send any weapons over, didn't want the nuclear Dimona reactor in Israel done. You're trying to block AIPAC. You kill this guy to stop all of that. Then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, he's got a brother. And now he's looking like he might become the president. Man, how are you going to stop that, right? I'm just saying how are you going to stop that? Anyways, so he's cooking through these presidential primaries. For those of you that were not alive, like I was not alive during this. And he had just won the states of South Dakota and California. On June 5th, he is addressing his campaign supporters at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Okay. He concludes his remarks. He exits the stage and the security begins escorting him through the back kitchen when suddenly, you're not going to believe this, it's so perfect. An anti-Zionist Palestinian walks up and shoots him, and he dies. He's declared dead at the Good Samaritan Hospital the next day, 25 hours later. Perfect. That is, oh my gosh, these Palestinians, you just cannot control them. Except that story doesn't appear to be entirely true either. By the way, not even RFK Jr. We're not in conspiracy land. Not even RFK Jr., who visited Saran, the person who they say shot him, the Palestinian who they said shot and killed him in prison. RFK Jr. visited him. He doesn't even believe that story. Okay, this is the Washington Post. Who killed Bobby Kennedy? His son, RFK Jr., doesn't believe it. It was Saran. You would have thought, by the way, that we would have all heard about this back in 2016. But we didn't, or at least I didn't, unless maybe I was under a rock. But even the people who were present when he was shot testified that Saran didn't kill him, but rather someone from behind RFK shot and killed him. Okay, take this guy, Paul Schrade, for example. This is a picture of Paul Schrade in 2016. Paul Schrade, at the age of 91 years old, appeared at Saran's parole hearing. Schrade was also shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He was there in the back. He got shot by Saran. And yet here he is appearing for him to be released on parole. And he apologized for missing Saran's 14 previous parole hearings. He told Saran at that time, quote, "I should have been here long ago. And that's why I feel guilty for not being here to help you and to help me." After the hearing, while Saran was being taken away, Schrade shouted, "Saran, I am so sorry this is happening to you. It is my fault." I'm sorry, what? You're saying sorry to the guy who shot you and the guy who shot RFK dead? Well, that's not the whole truth. What happened is not the whole truth. Well, at least what was presented to the public was not, if you believe Paul. And here is what he told the parole officers. I'm going to read you his remarks, which, as I said, you would have thought with the mainstream media these would have gone viral, but I guess they were busy doing other stuff. Now I'm going to skim through this, but we'll start with how he addresses them. He says, "I am Paul Schrade of Los Angeles. I am 91 years old. And back when I was 43, I was among 6 persons shot at the old Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles at just after midnight on June 5th, 1968. I was shot along with Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who had just won California's Democratic primary election for the presidency of the United States. 5 of us survived our wounds, and as history knows, Senator Kennedy was fatally wounded." Saran Bishara Saran was originally scheduled for release in 1984, but after intense political pressure, his parole date was rescinded, and he has since been denied 14 times.
Damn.
In order for you to make an accurate determination of Saran's parole, you need to know my feelings on this case and the full picture of what actually happened. Saran, I forgive you. The evidence clearly shows that you were not the gunman who shot Robert Kennedy. There is clear evidence of a second gunman in that kitchen pantry who shot Robert Kennedy. One of the bullets, the fatal bullet, struck Bob in the back of the head. 2 bullets struck Bob literally in his back.
Damn.
A 4th bullet struck the back of his coat's upper right seam and passed harmlessly through his coat. I believe all 4 of those bullets were fired from a second gunman standing behind Bob. You were never behind Bob, nor was Bob's back ever exposed to you. Indeed, Saran, the evidence not only shows that you did not shoot Robert Kennedy, but it shows that you could not have shot Robert Kennedy. Several days ago, I made sure that several documents were submitted to this board for you to review. If you have not done so as yet, I would ask—
Damn, all the evidence of the world say he didn't do it, but we're still going to run when he did it. It's actually crazy. And the thing is, it's crazy. They can easily pass it off on American people today because, like, we weren't there. It's like, it's just too far to recall. So we're kind of just going with whatever y'all say. And if the people from back then don't want to come up and just say, "Hey, no, it's not that guy," then we would never know this.
Ask you to please review them very carefully during your deliberation. I will be glad to resubmit these documents to you here today. I believe after you review these documents that it should become clear to you that Saran did not shoot and could not have shot Robert Kennedy. What I'm saying to you is that Saran himself was a victim. Obviously, there was someone else there in that pantry also firing a gun. While Saran was standing in front of Bob Kennedy and his shots were creating a distraction, the other shooter secretly fired at the senator from behind and fatally wounded him. Bob died 25 hours later. First, I want to show you this. It's a letter written in 2012 by my good friend, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Rfk Jr. Bobby wrote this letter to Eric Holder, who was then the Attorney General of the United States. In his letter to Mr. Holder, Bobby requests that the federal authorities examine the Brzezinski recording. Say that again, the Brzezinski recording, the only known audio recording made of his father's assassination at the Ambassador Hotel. The recording was uncovered in 2004 at the California State Archives by CNN International writer Brad Johnson. So somehow this recording was basically buried until somebody accidentally discovered it all the way in 2004. The next document is a federal court declaration from audio expert Philip von Prague. who Johnson recruited to analyze that Brzezinski recording. In this document, von Prague declares that his analysis of the recording concludes that 2 guns were fired in the Robert Kennedy shooting. Von Prague found a total of 13 gunshots in the Brzezinski recording. Saran's one and only gun at the crime scene held no more than 8 bullets, and Saran had no opportunity to reload it. Von Prague also found what he describes as double shots, meaning 2 gunshots fired so close together that they could not have both come from Saran's Ivor Johnson cadet revolver. Von Prague actually found 2 sets of these double shots. Additionally, he found that 5 of the 13 gunshots featured a unique audio resonance characteristic that could not have been produced by Saran's gun model, meaning those 5 shots were fired from a second gun of a different make. Von Prague further found that those 5 gunshots were fired in a direction heading away from Brzezinski's microphone. These documents are statements from 2 witnesses to the Robert Kennedy shooting. Both of them were assistant maitre d's for the Ambassador Hotel. These 2 men, Carl Uecker and Edward Manasian, escorted Robert Kennedy to the kitchen pantry immediately after the senator delivered his victory speech in a hotel ballroom for having won the California primary. Both Uecker and Manasian say that Saran was in front of Bob Kennedy as the senator walked towards Saran, meaning that Bob and Saran were facing each other. Both witnesses say Saran was still in front of Bob as Saran fired his gun, and both say that after Saran fired his first 2 shots, Uecker quickly pushed Saran against a steam table, placing Saran in a headlock while grabbing a hold of Saran's firing arm, forcing the tip of Saran's gun to point away from where Bob Kennedy was and causing Saran to fire blindly his remaining 6 bullets. In other words, Saran only had full control of his gun at the beginning when he fired his first 2 shots, one of which hit me. This document is the official Robert Kennedy autopsy report summary. It shows that all bullets directed at Senator Kennedy were fired from behind him at point-blank range. As the autopsy states, and as these drawings show, the bullets traveled from the back to the front at steep upward trajectories. 1 bullet struck Senator Kennedy at the back of the head, 2 bullets at the right rear armpit, and a 4th bullet at the right rear shoulder of his jacket, which passed harmlessly through his jacket. Again, Saran's bullets could not have struck the back of Bob Kennedy's head or the back of his body or the back of his jacket's right shoulder. These are documents from the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, that reveal the LAPD misconduct in the police investigation of the Robert Kennedy murder. They detail evidence that was destroyed while Saran's appeal was still pending, as well as a photograph that was acknowledged by the LAPD to be effective rebuttal, but was withheld from the defense team. Indeed, the LAPD and the LA County District Attorney knew 2 hours after the shooting of Senator Kennedy that he was shot by a second gunman, and they had conclusive evidence that Saran could not and did not do it. The official records show the prosecution at Saran's trial never had 1 witness. They had no physical nor ballistic evidence to prove that Saran shot Bob Kennedy. Evidence locked up for 20 years shows that the LAPD destroyed physical evidence and hid ballistic evidence exonerating Saran, and covered up conclusive evidence that a second gunman fatally wounded Robert Kennedy. This document is a memo written by criminologist Larry Baguette, who investigated the Robert Kennedy shooting for the LAPD. The Baguette memo states that the bullets that hit Senator Kennedy and William Weasel, another shooting victim in the pantry, were not fired from the same gun. The memo also states the bullet that traveled upward through Bob Kennedy's body and into his neck was not fired from Saran's revolver. Such a finding would be proof that Saran did not shoot Robert Kennedy. He goes on and he wraps it up by saying, again, Saran was not originally scheduled for release in 1984, but after intense political pressure, his parole date was rescinded and he has since been denied 14 times. Again, gentlemen, I believe you should grant Saran parole. And I ask you to do that today in the name of Robert F. Kennedy and in the name of justice. Thank you. That concludes my remarks. Now, for those of us who are a part of the book club and those of us who have read Chaos, to hear him speak about the corruption of the LAPD, and we have understood that the CIA was involved with the LAPD, just by understanding how much the public was lied to about the Manson murders and knowing that all this was happening at the same time. This book, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s, it's insane because all of these pieces are just starting to come together. And then it makes you wonder who would have, if this man is to be believed, and it's very difficult to believe that a 91-year-old would make all of this up. Why? What would be his reason? He was literally shot by Saran and is taking a stand and saying that this is ridiculous and that this has become political and that there was corruption and that actually this guy was just supposed to be the person who was blamed. Very similar to what we are learning about the JFK shooting. You get one guy who you're supposed to put the blame on, and
yeah, where this is effing my head up, it kind of seems like, okay, so y'all was able to shoot this man's brother and then get away with it, and then you're able to shoot this man and get away with it, and then y'all was also able to make these two different guys, I guess, the fake culprits, and then both get them killed. Like, well, no, I think the Sarag guy, no, never mind. I think he was just serving in jail, but y'all pretty much both got him framed and pretty much serving the punishments of crimes they didn't do. Bruh. And it merely makes me think, it's like, all right, well, I can understand Kennedy, I can understand JFK, but what did his brother do? Now, I did hear his brother was hard lying against the mob, but that's probably the only people I think that would take him out.
How did that guy get crazy? Oh, I'm going to guess he was probably MK Ultra, Saran. But how perfect the story. Anti-Zionist Palestinian kills a beloved Kennedy. Kennedy curse, guys? Nah, I'm thinking more like Operation Every Kennedy, Operation Keep Tabs on every member of this important political family always and forever. And one way to do that, if you wanted to keep tabs on every member of this family, would be to render them impotent with drug addiction, sex addictions, fueling their addictions and keeping tabs on them, learning what they're doing while they're high, right? Again, I am pulling this from everything I have learned about the 60s, everything that I have learned while looking at all of these case files pertaining to the Kennedys. And curiously enough, you're not going to believe this, right? Did you know that RFK Jr., yeah, that RFK Jr., the one running HHS, shortly after his father was murdered in 1968, while the MK Ultra program was in full swing, offering LSD and trying to control people's minds and getting them to do things and commit crimes and sexual acts. Well, he very shortly after his father's funeral got offered LSD from strangers. I'm not kidding. He went onto Sean Ryan's show and he spoke to him about that moment. Take a listen to RFK Jr. speaking about that.
When I was 15 years old, I never even drank coffee. And I went to that summer, the summer after my dad died, I went to a party for an elder brother of a friend of mine. I was hitchhiking home for that party, and an older boy picked me up, and who I knew, but not that well. And he offered me some LSD. And I had never taken any kind of drug before. I had a trip that was probably 10 hours.
I mean, your first drug being LSD is crazy. Your first drug being LSD is absolutely insane. Like, bro, that is not a first start out. That is not your party drug starter pack.
Hours. And I had a great time.
Damn. And like, bro done skip weed, ecstasy, like all that. He didn't skip all that. He didn't jump straight into LSD.
I ended up going into town and, just having a great time. But by the morning time, I was crashing. I was walking home and getting darker and darker, 3 miles from town back to my house. And just before I got to my house, I saw some older boys in the woods. I went in there to see what they were doing, and I told them I was crashing on the acid. And they said, here, try some of this. And I have been telling myself, I'm never going to do this again, right? Mm-hmm. And they said, try some of this. And it was crystal meth. And I took a snort of it, and I felt great. And that incident was the template for my addiction over the next 14 years.
I would love to know who exactly those families were.
Hey, not for real though, because those are some pretty bad examples. Like, yeah, I'm tripping out on LSD. Yeah, but here, snort this crystal meth. I'm like, that is not a good friend, bro. That is somebody trying to set you up. Give you more drugs while you're tripping out on drugs. It's crazy. Huh. It's like, bro, it's like what alcoholics says. You wanna know how you cure a hangover? Well, like how? With more alcohol. It's like crazy.
Who exactly those boys were who were plying him with drugs. It would just be interesting to know those facts. Anyways, as I told you on Friday, there have been some extraordinary rumors that have been circulating about RFK Jr. And I did not say this because I don't want RFK Jr. to be successful in his role. Of course, I do. I am the queen of being anti-vax. I obviously have created an entire series, and I've been very clear about the fact that if it was not for his catalog of work, I could not have created my catalog of work. And so he has contributed something for which I believe the entire world owes him tremendous gratitude. But I have never been under any illusions that RFK Jr. was not in some capacity being controlled. That has never, as soon as I saw him with Rabbi Shmuley, and he couldn't explain why that was. And as soon as I was watching his interviews with Dave Smith, and he couldn't explain why he couldn't lodge even one critique of Israel, I got very suspicious. Without getting into the gossip elements of what I have learned, what I would kind of instead do is rely on the obvious understanding that he still appears to have issues with impulse control. I think that's a fair assessment, right? That is best evidenced by the fact that despite running for president of the United States and knowing that he would be under intense scrutiny, that all eyes would be on him, he still engaged in a rather high-risk behavior when he decided to start a sexting relationship with a mainstream media journalist, Olivia Nuzzi, who was adversarial to him. Okay, that right there, forgetting who said what, that right there tells you that he is not fully able to control himself. And people who cannot control themselves will find themselves being controlled. Without getting into further details at this moment about what I know and what I have been told, I can tell you that one name that kept coming up is Amaryllis Fox. Now, I've never heard of Amaryllis Fox. I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's actually quite extraordinary, what she's accomplished in her life. She's a former CIA officer, born Amaryllis Thornburg. She attracted the CIA's attention when she was really young, while she was pursuing her master's degree. When, after the September 11th attacks, she created an algorithm to identify local terrorist safe havens. And I'm just going to read you a couple of more high points from her teenage years, okay? At the age of 18, this is from her Wikipedia. In 1999, at the age of 18, she secretly recorded an interview for the BBC with the Burmese leader, Aung San Suu, then under house arrest. And in order to arrange the meeting, Fox worked with a local dissident journalist. Okay, we're talking, this is crazy for an 18-year-old, with whom she was communicating with via taped messages that were inside the water tank of a toilet at a
My bad. I was just pretty much saying that how the CIA has always exploited high IQ people. You know, you kind of get high IQ people, you fill them up full of drugs, and then you out here and you get the Unabomber. Boom.
Cafe in Rangoon. Her intent in going overseas in that trip had been to make a secret recording of a planned pro-democracy protest that was supposed to take place on September 9th. Yeah, pro-democracy protest, the CIA, an 18-year-old. It's giving color revolution, okay? Her Wikipedia goes on to say that Fox became one of the CIA's youngest female officers at age 22, assigned to quote-unquote non-official cover, which entailed her living abroad with fake identities and no diplomatic protection. She has said she assumed the cover of an art dealer and focused on preventing terror organizations from acquiring, you guessed it, weapons of mass destruction. Every time, weapons of mass destruction. She ended up marrying another fellow agent named Dean Fox. That's how her name became Agent Fox, who she met while she was undercover in Shanghai. So she'd been all over the world undercover, which I always think about, what does that do to your brain when you lie for a living? You lie about who you are for a living. You pretend to be someone that you're not. Anyways, her and Dean Fox eventually got divorced. And then you're never going to guess what happened in her life. After 8 years at the agency, she left the CIA in 2010. Which I always wonder, do you ever just leave the CIA? Is that actually a thing? Can you really get another job after? Do they just let you go in the CIA? What happens to a person when they leave the CIA? Anyways, I'll tell you what happened to her. Then she went to a Burning Man festival. I know what you're thinking. You're like, whoa, you mean like the Burning Man festival, middle of the desert, a bunch of kids high on LSD, tons of love drugs, connecting with one another. Yeah, she went to a Burning Man festival. And a mutual friend of hers introduced her to RFK Jr.'s son, RFK III. Yeah. And they just fell in love, which many people do at the Burning Man Festival, I would imagine. It's all about love, and it's community. It's like hippie community, I would say. And they got married in Cape Cod in 2018. And by 2023, she was working for RFK.
So CIA asset or CIA agent quits all of a sudden, goes to Burning Man, and somehow ends up with RFK Jr.'s son. Is wild. It's wild as hell. After a life of espionage, is even crazier. Huh. I guess you better watch out who you marry.
Junior's her father-in-law's presidential campaign. Beautiful stuff, guys. That's it. I just wanted to tell you a beautiful.
I mean, for real though, could you honestly trust your spouse if there was an ex-CIA asset? Like, I mean, could you honestly ex-CIA? Could you honestly trust your spouse? Like, hold on, you used to do what? Like, wait, like different personalities. Like, well, you was here and there and pretended to be this person and that person. You got who took it out?
Beautiful love story. Just love that so much. Anyway, she's obviously very smart and capable. I just think it's kind of weird that she would let a guy like Rabbi Shmuley near her father-in-law, right? I mean, all that CIA experience and nothing seemed off to her about that connection, that friendship. Anyways, you guys know me. I am just asking questions. I don't know why. I'm just always just asking questions. And we will continue this. I just think it would be more fun to continue it with Ian Carroll. And I'm trying to make that happen. And we can kind of tell you guys what are the rumors that are circulating. And again, I want to inform you guys, this is not because anybody has any ill will towards RFK. Like I said, we were both massively supportive of everything that he is doing and would like to keep him focused on what he should be doing, which is actually going after health issues and our children, not declaring pandemics and epidemics over racism and anti-Semitism. That's just not what he's in there for. And it's problematic. And we have to be serious if we want to take back our country, of confronting the initial takeover of our country, which I believe happened on the day that JFK was shot. We have to have brave conversations. We have to be willing to be called conspiracy theorists. We have to be willing to be attacked nonstop by journalists. We have to be willing to be called anti-Semitic. We have to be willing to be called Adolf Hitler. We have to be willing to be called every name in the book if we are going to save our country. That's my belief from the bottom of my heart. Anyways, you guys gonna tell you a little about some sponsors. We have one, Fatty 15. Do you like the way that sounds? It's pretty simple, essential nutrients that she still didn't issue an apology for the persons that she insulted, the ones that were her best friends. 2, she went forward with some clever wording, taking yet another dig, categorically a path.
But all right, hold on now. Now let's get a little bit more into RFK and let's let this man Myron cook on this subject. Whoops, where are we at here? There we go.
Sitting president and in the murder of a former attorney general of the United States who was running for president. RFK Jr. knows this. How are you and the Zionist lobby is powerful. They're involved in the killing of a sitting president and in the murder of a former attorney general of the United States who was running for president. RFK Jr. knows this. How are you anti-war but supporting Israel? That's absolutely antithetical to the libertarian movement, but he has to be, because now with the declassified documents, we know that the Zionist lobby had fingerprints on his uncle and his father's death. And it's interesting to me too, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but RFK has not said a word about this recent batch of declassified documents. Any of you guys catch on to that? RFK has not said a word about this new batch of documents that finally implicates Israel in his uncle assassination. Now, let's get into RFK. RFK Jr. is Jr. because his father, Rfk Sr., was the Attorney General back during the JFK administration. When John F. Kennedy was killed in 1963, RFK never trusted the Warren Commission. He never liked Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay? He always thought he was a snake. He always thought that he would do anything to get himself ahead. And quite frankly, he looked at him as a treacherous, evil individual. Many don't know that LBJ actually bullied his way to become Vice President of the United States. When JFK was running, LBJ basically told him, if I don't become your running mate, we are going to expose the fact that you are an adulterous womanizer, which JFK was. He had many affairs.
Yeah.
And that was his.
I mean, come on now. JFK looked like he was good with the ladies. Let's be honest now. It made sense. Like, come on. JFK looked like he had the hose.
Weak point. Because LBJ used that.
But hey, I mean, that's how you got him back then. That's what the thing. It's kind of funny that and I would just say this is the only reason why I think it's okay for that. Well, gays are accepted now, because back in the day, it kind of was blackmail for being so. It's either you was cheating on your wife, you were gay, or you messed with kids. Those three things was gonna get you blackmailed off rip. And cheating on your wife and the gay part was the two headliners.
To put himself as vice president. And RFK never liked that. Never trusted him after that. Because you guys know, back in the 1960s, it's not like 2025. Donald Trump fucks, porn star? No big deal. Back in the 1960s, 1950s, Catholic president, Irish, hooking up with chicks, cheating on his wife? Oh, that would have been a problem. That's career suicide, guys. So LBJ strong-armed his way in. And after his brother was killed and the Warren Commission found Oswald as the sole shooter, RFK never accepted it. He publicly accepted the findings of the Warren Commission.
Dang. So, so sucks about hearing that, though. It's like, if you were just able to keep it in your pants, you'd never be in this position. If you was able to keep your hoes in line, you'd never be in this position. In a more crude way, but let's be real. I mean, if the man wasn't cheating, he wouldn't be here.
Right? To alleviate pressure on.
Or if he was honest, he just said, F it, I don't care. Go ahead and release it. I'd rather my wife found out I'm a cheater than me selling out my country. I'd rather him have took that position, to be quite honest with you.
The government and government mistrust. But deep down, he never trusted it. He didn't trust it so much that he conducted his own investigation privately. And when he was killed, he was basically snooping around too much, right? And most
I ain't
important,
gonna lie. If I was RFK Jr., I'd have pulled a Kevin Hart. As soon as bro would have pulled out, I'm gonna expose you cheating to your wife. I'd have called my wife right there, like, baby, man, I gotta tell you something, man. I gotta tell you about Caroline or something.
importantly, he was running for president. Everyone knows that was close to RFK, that if RFK had become president, he would have reopened the investigation into his brother's death. And they couldn't have that. RFK already was problematic to organized crime because one of the first things he did when he was Attorney General was he brought these mobsters in and made them testify. He basically pulled the veil on organized crime in the United States. And he tried to make the Zionist lobby register. That's two whammies, right? So when the powers that be discovered that RFK not only wanted to become president, but he was doing quite a bit of snooping around on his brother's death, they had to get rid of him. Fast forward to 1968. Los Angeles, California. After giving a speech at the Ambassador Hotel, RFK walks through a kitchen. A guy named Sirhan pops out of fucking nowhere and fires a bunch of shots.
Damn.
Maybe not that quickly and that many shots. But it's important to note that when he popped out and tried to shoot at RFK, he was in front of RFK. But the shots that killed RFK actually came from behind him. A shot to the back and a shot to the back of the head. We know this because when we look at physical evidence, there's stippling on the skin. Stippling is a burn mark that's left whenever a gun is fired at close range within 2 inches.
I mean, damn.
So that means, without a shadow of a doubt,
I mean, the headshot was their message. It's like, bruh, talk about a signal or a code, or what was it, like, or a card. It's like, yeah, headshot. That's their card. If you mess around with us, if you try to go against this agenda we're trying to push on the American people, you're gonna catch a headshot. And luckily, well, I guess Trump was able to dodge hits.
that the gun was shot at almost point-blank range at RFK, and the kill shots came from behind him. Well, we know from witnesses, several that were there, including reputable journalists, that Sirhan was in front of RFK. And on top of that, Sirhan's weapon only had about 8 rounds in the, I think it was a revolver. 8 rounds. But there were far more shots all throughout the area.
Bruh.
So what does that mean? That means that there was a second shooter, chat. Enter Eugene Caesar. Dane Eugene Caesar. We'll just call him Caesar for simpler purposes. A security guard that worked that night. He was walking behind RFK when this happened, and witnesses saw him pull out his gun. The only person that was within range to shoot and kill RFK that lines up with the forensic and physical evidence was Caesar. Now, Caesar lied to the police and said that he sold his gun, the kill weapon, 3 months earlier. But when investigators followed up with the person that purchased the weapon, they found out that he bought it 3 months after the murder. So Caesar lied and said he sold it 3 months prior, but in reality, he sold it 3 months after the murder.
I think I'm starting to solve what got Trump shot at. I think it was, honestly, his attack on gangs. Him pretty much saying from the jump that he was going to go after gangs. And let's be real, some parts of our government, our intelligence agency, work with gang organizations like the cartel. So I honestly do think that, yeah, when Trump says he's going after these gang members, I think the intelligence agency's seen that as a threat against them and to try to take a shot at them. Because it couldn't be like JFK, because, well, JFK, let's be real, it was the whole, well, Israel aspect and the gang aspect. We could take the Israel aspect because Trump is a Zionist. And then we can, but we know we can't take away, though, the gang aspect of it. He is messing with, well, organized crime, just like Kennedy.
He sold it in September of 1968. But the murder occurred in June of 1968. Then you find out, thanks to my guy Ryan Dawson, we did a whole broadcast on this, by the way, guys. Feel free to go check it out. Did a whole broadcast on this. That Caesar worked for organized crime. Basically, he got into some trouble in Mexico and owed some Italians and some Jewish mobsters a favor. And quite frankly, at this point, they needed to tie some loose ends. Caesar, who had just gotten that job, by the way, with Allied Security, was like maybe a second or third day on the job, carried out the hit. And to this day, RFK Jr. knows that Sirhan did not kill his father. He knows Caesar killed his father, and he was supposed to go meet Caesar in the Philippines in 2019. But he passed away before RFK can get there. And he tried to extort RFK for $10,000 to $20,000. So we'll never know if Caesar was going to be the one to admit to RFK Jr. that he was the one that in fact killed his father. But all the physical evidence lines up. And on top of that, to make things even weirder, Sirhan is alive to this day. He's currently in prison. He doesn't remember the day that this occurred. He doesn't remember anything. But he conveniently had a Death to Israel pamphlet in his back pocket, a Christian Palestinian. Does that not seem a little fishy to you guys? Sounds like a false flag to me. But they were too stupid to realize that if you're going to go ahead and kill a fucking person that's running for president, who is the brother of a president that was literally assassinated 5 years prior, that you need to make sure that the physical evidence lines up with the fucking scheme that you're doing. You dummies. Stupid.
I didn't care.
The RFK autopsy was one of the most...
Honestly, I think when these guys committed this crime or doing this whole conspiracy, bro, they did not care. Well, not that they didn't care, but they didn't expect us to look back this far.
Bruh.
They thought that they were going to be able to lock it up for years and nobody would ever find out. That's the only reason why they did this. You got to understand, like, people don't do this expecting to get caught, well, at least within their lifetime.
Precise and thorough and well-done autopsies ever. Why? Because when JFK was killed on November 22nd, 1963, there was a lot of fucking around with the body. And what I mean by that is they flew the corpse up to Washington or Maryland, Virginia, one of these areas. They didn't let the Texas doctors do a proper autopsy there. Magic bullets are being found all over the place. The evidence was absolutely corrupted. So when RFK was killed, they said, never again. We're going to make sure that we do this autopsy right. And that autopsy was pretty fucking precise. That's how they knew that the kill shot had stifling and came from behind. And it was very thorough. But that did not line up with the physical evidence. So in other words, Sirhan, like the JFK assassination, was supposed to be the patsy, but they fucked up. Because Sirhan came from the front, the killer was actually behind. And Sirhan is still in jail to this day, guys. He's still in jail to this day. So why do I say all this? Well, I need to paint a picture for you guys that the Zionist lobby is powerful. They're involved in the killing of a sitting president and in the murder of a former Attorney General of the United States who was running for president. Rfk Jr knows this. He's been through a lot. His wife committed.
Yeah.
He lost his father.
Yeah.
Disease.
That is a bit wild. I remember they were trying to harp on him for that. Like, oh, why did his wife commit suicide? I'm like, bro, y'all is vicious. I remember when it was like at least a 2-day campaign and they let it go because they kind of realized, even the left realized, I'm like, all right, we're going too far. Like, come on, bro, coming after dead wives. We're going too far. But yeah, I do remember that little campaign that was going on his wife. And I was like, damn, I don't know, bro. I don't think that's the way to go. It's like he lost his dad, wife suicide, bro, drug binging. It's like, yeah, bro lived a pretty tough one. He lived a pretty tough life.
That's destroyed the sound of his voice.
Born rich though. Yeah, born rich, but lived a tough ass life. Boy, this man lived the life of a hood nigga. Bruh. Like, bruh, done lost a dad, man. Bro, done lost some homies, all that crazy stuff. Like, bro, lost a wife. Like, shoot, fuck a hood nigga. Bro, done lived the life of an army vet, damn near.
Political aspirations absolutely tarnished. A family that's filled with divisiveness. He's lived a fairly hard life, man. And on top of that, we know that he's a sexual degenerate.
Yeah.
So you guys don't think if they could kill his uncle?
Here's the, I wouldn't even like sexual degenerate or just the man was just, I mean, he just loved having multiple women. Because here's the thing. It's funny how Myron will call him a sexual degenerate, but you know, he's the same guy that believes in having multiple women. So it is a bit funny. He has that judge says degenerate. It's like, now my judgment with Kennedy is that I might, bro, at the climate of the time, you having hella mistresses is outrageous. Mike, but here's the thing though. In today's time, bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. That boy would have been lit. That boy would have been that guy if he'd have been doing that today. He would be like, wait, our president has like 5 mistresses? Like, hey, yo. And that man running the country and handling 5 different women. Hey, nah, that'd have been cold. I'm sorry. Nah, maybe that's not the best thing to say.
Kill his father, that they wouldn't have blackmail on him to keep him in line. If they could do that, I think them blackmailing him is 10 times easier. So the reason why RFK refuses to criticize the powerful Zionist lobby, or the fact that he's walking around with someone like Rabbi Shmuley who hurts his credibility, they have something on him. And I think him seeing his uncle and his father be killed the way that they were is a stark reminder that he better not get out of fucking line.
Like, bro, like, come on. You can't say that's not like the hood nigga lifestyle. Like, you go out, you lose some homies, a couple family members, then you go out on a drug binge, you do some wild stuff, and then you turn to God all of a sudden. Yes, or Allah, if you go to jail.
That's the only reason I could think of as to why he still fucking covers for them, for Israel. When there's irrefutable proof that they were in fact involved in killing his uncle and his father. So I think he just understands what it is. I think he just knows that. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to die. They have a lot of dirt on me. I don't want to lose my political standing.
It is what it is. I mean, it's an L on all sides. That's pretty much what he's saying. Like, bro, it's an L on all sides. It's like, bro, they could take away my job, my life, my reputation. It's an L on all air. Like, bro, this man would just have to be okay with just committing complete career suicide on the hope, on the prayer that we believe what this man is saying, and understanding that him saying we're gonna find out some egregious things about him. So here's the thing: if one of these people came out, right? So let's say this man did come out and he said, "Hey, yo, no, they did this. They killed my dad. They killed RFK. It was the whoever